Hello, dear friends. We are so glad you're here to learn about the reality of dissociative identity disorder. Welcome to Season 3. We are your hosts, Drew
and Garden System,
a couple of multiples.
We are a married couple, and we both have dissociative identity disorder. Did you know that 120 million people across the globe live with dissociative identity disorder and are often misdiagnosed for 6 to 12 years?
We hope to help educate and dispel myths about DID to help people find the right diagnosis and appropriate treatment as quickly as possible.
Please visit acoupleofmultiples.com and sign up for our mailing list to stay up to date with our podcast, our private paid online DID community called Hearts Multiplied, and to book consultations.
That's right. Drew and Garden System are now offering consultation to help educate and support those living with and treating dissociative identity disorder. You can book an appointment with either Garden System or both Drew and Garden System right from our website, acoupleofmultiples.com.
We hope you enjoy this episode and learn something new.
We appreciate all of our reviews, and we love to hear from you, dear listener, about what you enjoyed the most. We are honored to have multiple sponsors for Season 3. You can find links to each sponsor's webpage in the show notes of every episode and on our website under the Listen to Our Podcast tab. The Institute for Creative Mindfulness, one of the largest EMDR therapy training programs in North America, is directed by Dr. Jamie Plus-Marich, the only EMDR therapy trainer who is out as a plural and offers the full EMDR therapy basic training in a way that honors lived experience and destigmatizes dissociation in clinical work.
We felt so validated when we were able to authentically participate in this training as Garden System. Go to www.instituteforcreativemindfulness.com for a full list of upcoming trainings, both online and in person, offered by Dr. Jamie and her selected network of EMDR trainers.
Bearings therapy is different from anything you've ever tried. You spend your nights worrying about whether you did the right thing, whether you're failing your family, how you and your spouse don't connect anymore, and those things haunt you at night.
You don't feel comfortable talking to anyone. A, you don't want to relive it, and B, you're not interested in talking about your garbage. You may feel lost right now, but I'll be your compass. Get your bearings. Call me today, 214-892-2158. As a certified internal family systems licensed therapist, Tiffany Morgan, owner of Holistic Self-Healing Psychotherapy, specializes in working with dissociative identities through IFS and sculpting.
Known affectionately as Ocean, she brings lived experience with dissociative identities and anorexia, offering consulting, psychotherapy, training, and authoring a book on personal and professional experiences in these areas.
Visit www.tiffanycobb with 2 B's, Morgan.com. www.tiffanycobbmorgan.com or call 520-582-9313 for more information.
Alix Amar, LCSW, offers creative art classes and series including the Creative Journal, Soul Collage, and Altered Books, all on the Zoom platform exclusively for people living with dissociation.
The 8-week winter series of the Creative Journal begins at the end of November. For more information, check out her website at alixamar.com, ALIXAMAR.com, or her Facebook page, Dissociative Creative Explorations.
Welcome, dear friends, to this personal episode with Drew
and Garden System, a couple of multiples. The reality of dissociative identity disorder.
This episode, we will be focusing on relationships where both parties are multiples, like us, Drew and Garden System. One of the biggest reasons why we decided it was super important for us to have this season be about relationships is that one of the prevailing myths still out there about people with dissociative disorders is that they cannot be successful in long-term committed relationships. Garden System and I are here to say that that is a bunch of rubbish. We have many friends and know many systems with DID that have been in long-term successful relationships with others, and we want to actively squash this myth that some people with DID are being told that they will never be able to be in a loving, long-term committed relationship. We want to instill hope back in relationships for people with DID and say, this is more than possible. Here are some realistic, real-life examples of how we make this relationship thing work for us. We will also be having a separate episode and an interview on relationships where there is a multiple and a singleton. For those of you that aren't familiar, a singleton is what multiples call someone that does not have DID.
We're also interviewing another couple where both partners have DID, so you can hear about their experiences, which may be very different from what Drew and I will share with you. We are very excited to share these future episodes with you. And another episode coming later this season is one on navigating intimacy. Make sure you are signed up for our mailing list so you don't miss any of these exciting episodes.
Yes, visit our website, acouplemultiples.com, to sign up for our mailing list. So this episode, we will try to cover all things relationship between a couple of multiples. And just as Garden System was saying, we will be doing an entire episode on intimacy when you have DID in its very own separate episode. Well, because there's a lot to cover there that many will probably be interested in, and we want to do the subject justice, while also separating intimate info and stories that could possibly be triggering, but also hopefully helpful to some.
So, what are we covering today then, wifey?
Okay, dude, that was a complete cop-out. I do believe you were the one to actually type out our little outline for this episode while we were in line for the Avatar ride at Animal Kingdom this past weekend. So what's the first thing we came up with, dear wifey?
I'm not copping out, but I did outline this episode while waiting to ride Flight of Passage at Animal Kingdom. First on our list is all the pros of being in a relationship with another multiple. Then we will get into some of the unique challenges that can come up when you both have DID. What's next now, wifey?
Well, after talking about all the wonderfully unique challenges, we will also discuss what communication is like between us. We don't have our own secret language or anything, although that would be fun, but we communicate with each other in ways only two systems can, since we both have parts.
Well, some of our littles have their own secret language.
Yeah, that's kind of true. And they totally understand each other. Some don't even talk at all. And well, they still get stuff across just fine.
Yep, and they sure do. And oh, the unique challenges that come up when we both have mute parts fronting. There is never a dull moment between the two of us, that's for sure. We're also going to talk about how we handle some of our daily activities like chores, finances, and more. It might sound a little mundane, but it has its challenges. Wifey and I find ways to help regulate all of our various selves and each other to get through some of the challenges of just trying to survive in today's crazy world. So make sure to hang around all the way to the end.
Yeah, make sure you don't miss any of this fun, crazy goodness. So we'll start with all the amazing things of being with another multiple. I think the best thing, in my opinion, is that Garden System has parts, just like me. It may seem obvious, but I think it's worth talking about. A singleton just doesn't have the same inside experience as us multiples do, and in lots of ways, that is a huge advantage in our relationship with one another. I don't have to explain what being a multiple is like to Garden System. Now, our experiences, both internal and external, are each unique. However, she does know what it's like to have a system, and so do I. So I think that provides a built-in sense of safety there, that we don't have to hide from one another or feel like the other doesn't get it.
Exactly. We both knew that we were systems while we were still friends even, so moving over to dating and then marriage was a lot easier without having to try to figure out when and how to disclose our diagnosis. We didn't have to. While each of us have our own individual experiences, it does help that we don't have to do a lot of explaining or a lot of psychoeducation. I think knowing and having our own lived experience helps us to bring patience and compassion to the table a lot easier when the other one is struggling with something.
Yes, and I'd like to add that it felt like when we were just friends that we had a level of intimacy already kind of built in because we didn't feel like we had to hide. We could be our authentic selves from the get-go, and that felt really good. There's this experience when you're a person with DID where you feel different in a lot of ways from those around you. It's a lonely experience, and it doesn't feel like you can be yourselves safely without judgment in most situations. So a person with DID goes around kind of living a pretty inauthentic life to try to fit in and appear as a singleton. At least I did. Meeting others with DID and meeting Garden System changed that for me. These relationships I've built with others in the DID community have given me confidence now in my other relationships with singletons because I have learned that we are a pretty amazing person as we are.
One aspect of being a multiple is managing when littles end up fronting. This can have a lot of challenges for daily interactions with people in general, but especially with someone who is supposed to be an intimate partner. A benefit of dating another multiple is that it's a lot easier for littles to really be themselves when they front. Now, singletons can be really good at interacting with littles, and I know some of you amazing supporters out there can really rock the switching your partner does. Yet, my own experience with attempting to date singletons back before wifey and I got together was that my dating partners were really put off by experiencing a little front. Littles need time in the body too, and they shouldn't have to hide from the person we trust the most.
Right. I mean, when Garden System's littles are out and want to do something kid-friendly, we're all about it because we have littles screaming for kid time too. And it's fun to do art or to play video games or to play with kid toys with wifey's littles. It doesn't feel wrong or inappropriate because her body is the same age as my body and a lot of our littles are the same ages. Our parts end up building relationships with each other, all ages. So we have relationships within our relationship.
Yep, and we plan to talk more about all of those relationship dynamics in a future episode. It may seem like a little thing, but one big benefit is that there are 0 complaints about having stuffed animals on the bed.
Yeah, I've been able to restart my stuffed animal collection. It is fabulous.
We are overflowing with stuffies. Having toys, stuffed animals, games, and video games, it's just a normal part of daily life. And we get to do a lot of that together. We both have an understanding of the importance of making sure time is shared with littles.
And teens and everybody. But yes, like when we watch TV, it's not weird when we want to watch a kid show or movie over and over again, or that we want to spend weekends at Disney, or that sometimes we just have to get that candy or toy when a little has had to tuck themselves away so we can be our adult selves at work. I have been in a relationship with a singleton that did allow for littles to have time out, but they had no littles to play with me, and at times that did feel unbalanced, even though they were considerate of my need and tried to play with me. It felt like I was playing with an adult, because I was. Being with another multiple means all the parts can do things together in a more balanced feeling way.
We have experienced feeling a bit awkward at letting singletons, even close friend singletons, really see us. Having other littles to interact with allows us to have a lot of corrective experiences together. There is a sense of balance with each other, which leads us to our next benefit, is that we really are able to balance each other out and tackle a lot of the daily tasks because we're not just two, but a collective of many plus many.
So true. We have lots and lots of combined strengths. And when we are both in an untriggered place, we are extremely productive. A power couple for sure. We just have so much to draw from, and some part or parts of us do the job, whatever it is.
Most definitely. Not just superwoman, but super women. And now a couple of my male parts are complaining, haha. We really are able to be super productive at times and also really understand when the other is having an off day and just needs that downtime. We each know what it is like to be struggling with flashbacks, feeling depressed, or rapid switching, so we can be really supportive of each other when the other is experiencing these types of things.
Yes. And I think it might be easier for us to notice each other's switches than other people that could be considered close to us in our life and know about our DID. I mean, sometimes we know the other has switched before we know we have switched ourselves. And for whatever reason, it has felt less invasive for wifey to inquire about what might be going on for me internally or when I switch than when singleton friends or past singleton partners have inquired. It's like I feel seen when wifey notices, but rudely discovered by other people if they notice. Maybe because I try to hide more around other people. Do you relate at all with this, wifey?
How beautifully put, wifey. Yes, it does feel more like I'm seen in a good and caring way when wifey notices who we are. And with other people, it is more like a rude discovery. We usually don't like other people noticing who we are. While we are out about our diagnosis and have no qualms sharing who we are, it is really annoying, actually, when someone else notices who we are. And weirdly, this switches up with our therapist. Sometimes we like it when she notices who we are. Sometimes we get mad when she mixes us up, and other times we don't like her seeing our switches. So yeah, I can see how singletons can be confused about whether or not it's okay to ask who is out.
Yeah, honestly, it makes this multiple sound a little rude.
Well, I wouldn't say rude, more like confusing. Like, why can't we make up our mind? Oh, right. Because there are too many minds and too many opinions, and we cannot all agree.
Yeah, so basically, to sum this up, we are comfortable being complex together.
Yep. And that's being said, there are some unique challenges that come along with being a multiple that is married to another multiple. It's not all sunshine, rainbows, and sprinkles.
That sounds like unicorn farts, right?
Maybe smells a little like them.
All jokes aside, the challenges can be, how can I put it, even more challenging. I think the most difficult thing about being with another multiple is when we are both dysregulated at the same time, when we are both triggered, are both switchy, and are both dissociated.
Even though we both have DID and can be pretty good at recognizing each other's switches, sometimes we just don't realize that a switch has occurred or that the other is struggling. We both have selves with particularly excellent resting you-know-what faces, and that lands us both in deep trouble.
Yes, things can get derailed quickly without us even trying. One of us being triggered can sometimes trigger the other. We might think the other is being mean, rude, or inconsiderate when we don't realize a switch has occurred, even though that's just how that part's face looks, which can trigger and cause defensive switches in the other. Multiple triggered systems of selves can equal a lot of chaos, internal and external, and although we have learned over time to be slower to react and to really assess what is going on for the other person when we notice the other is being anything but kind, sometimes it's hard not to take it personally, and reactions happen that kind of cause a domino effect that can be a real recipe for relationship disaster.
Ain't that the truth? It's so easy for us to trigger each other and sink into our own personal negative beliefs about self. Relationships are really hard because, well, they are super important. We're trying to develop healthy, secure attachments with each other, yet our disorganized, anxious, avoidant attachment styles keep trying to save the relationship. However, it doesn't actually need saving.
Right. Almost all of our personal relationship slip-ups are over physical intimacy differences in needs and triggers. We will be giving detailed personal examples from our own relationship regarding this topic in our upcoming episode specifically on intimacy. Honestly, I can't think of many other situations we get easily derailed on. Maybe over our dog Anna sometimes, or maybe money. What do you think, Garden System?
Well, our hot topics aren't really that much different from relationships where DID isn't involved. Intimacy, finances, pets, just the general way we spent our lives doing things, and now we have to make some adjustments because we're living with another person now. One of the unique challenges that we face that maybe other singletons don't face is how communication gets derailed, often because our teen self, Maisie, well, she'll front, but she's selectively mute.
Right. And when I don't understand that Maisie is the one out, that stone cold face and no words looks and feels a lot like a silent treatment, which can trigger my protective part out, Feeny. But Feeny doesn't come flying out right away. Usually Lizzie, our adult self that is out most, gets worn down trying to communicate with Maisie, but gets nowhere fast. If Lizzie has already had a hard day, she may not notice it is Maisie and get angry by her behavior or offended, and that's when Feeny might come out. Feeny ends up protecting with some sharp looks and words, and then that's how things get derailed. Granted, this doesn't happen constantly. Lizzie usually catches that it is Maisie now and knows to give her space, or we switch to our self named Pink, who is in love with Maisie and will look lovingly at Maisie's cold stare with admiration and tell her that she is her long, dark-haired beauty. Even though the body that she is looking at has short blonde hair, Pink sees nothing but Maisie when she is out in the body, and Maisie's cold attitude tends to melt away in the presence of Pink. Oh, the power of teenage love.
Yes, once we can figure out who is out and what is going on, then it is a lot easier to find the right selves inside to come on out and take care of all that is happening between us. It really isn't so easy to figure out who is fronting in each other, though.
Well, sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. It depends how observant we are being. The better our own personal state is, the easier it is to see who is fronting in our relationship. And it's true. Over time, we have discovered who in our systems get along best with others in our systems and can switch to a more suitable part if necessary to better match what is going on in the relationship. It has taken some practice, though, and sometimes, well, things just get derailed, like we were just explaining. So, garden system, what do you think works best to get things back on track when one of us notices things have gotten derailed?
Shifting into the right self to change the energy of what is going on. When Maisie was able to recognize that Feeny was out, it really helped shift our perspective on what was going on with you, and we were able to contain the distress we were feeling and reach out to you all in a less defensive way. Then we suggested watching something funny on Netflix. Finding ways to inject humor or to laugh is really helpful.
Yeah. When parts get really intense or angry with each other, switching up what we are doing to give it a rest for a little while is definitely best. Nothing good is going to happen the more we stew over whatever we are both mad about. And the other day when Feeny came out, by the way, when Feeny comes out, that's how you know our system is just up over our heads and not a good way. Switching the TV on to a comedy was brilliant because Feeny is not about humor or TV shows about us lowly humans. She's an immortal phoenix, so she went away after a few minutes of the TV show being put on, and Lizzie and Ramona were back out laughing at the TV show. A simple thing like changing what the activity or environment is can remedy a possible train wreck really fast, which makes these types of situations much more hopeful and fixable.
Working on a personal system mapping can really help us work on how to navigate all of our relationship dynamics. This is something I have done in my head a lot, but it helps so much to get out of my head and put things down in a concrete way to see what is happening internally. We've started using things like Google Docs, paper and markers, and even now a whiteboard with magnets to create these personal system maps. When something is happening between me and wifey, I can map out what is going on inside of me to identify how I was triggered and what negative self-beliefs I need to be working on in my therapy session.
Yes, my therapist points out to me that when we find ourselves triggered in our relationship with Garden System, it really points to a personal struggle, belief, or conflict that we need to work on in our own therapy. Doing system mapping can help identify who in our system is having a struggle or conflict, which then can lead us to identifying a personal belief that we may have that is in turn affecting our relationship.
Yep, and we recently made a couple of videos about system mapping on our social media accounts. You can find the links to those social media accounts on our website, acoupleofmultiples.com. I show how I use the whiteboard and magnets and another example on Google Documents. We had some beautiful messages and comments on these videos, so Drew and I decided to create a system mapping workshop to offer everyone. We're so excited to announce that you can sign up for this exciting event now. It'll be 4 hours on November 10th from 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will show various ways to do a system map, and attendees will be able to create their own personal maps in a small group setting. The cost will be $50. We are limiting this event to only 10 attendees, so you'll want to sign up right away.
You can sign up by emailing us at admin@acoupleofmultiples.com, and we will send you a link to submit your payment. So I think we should go over daily life stuff when you have a relationship consisting of a couple of multiples. You know, like how we handle daily chores, finances, and running errands. These are things every couple on this planet has to navigate, but what are special challenges two multiples run into, and how do we go about navigating these challenges?
One of our biggest challenges, especially with the household chores, is the inconsistency of expectations. Victoria expects our house to look like something out of the magazine Better Home and Gardens and freaks out about the dust on the baseboards.
Yeah. But you pair her up with a part like my Lizzie, and you got a solid cleaning machine that will eventually fizzle out in about 5 hours. And then, well, we have a clean house.
The problem is, however, that no one else in our system has such high expectations.
Yeah, no one. No one in my system either.
Leanna, Kilara, and Sadie are far too busy with their own goals and things going on in their internal fictive worlds to care about what's happening out here in this world. And everyone else in our system is pretty much a teen or little, so none of them care about keeping things tidy. So when Victoria finally does front, the house is usually in such disarray that she shoots sky high above her window of tolerance and totally loses her mind. And she has a tendency to blame everyone else in the household for how awful things have supposedly gotten in the house.
Yeah, and wifey's external teenagers, there are 4 of them, tend to get yelled at a bit in the mix of it all because expectations aren't consistently held for the house to be up to Victoria's standards. And needless to say, when you have 4 teenagers and 2 adults in the house, not to mention our dog, 4 cats, and 3 fish tanks, well, it can get messy fast without anyone really meaning for it to be that messy. We've tried lots of things, charts, schedules, rewards, consequences, but when we are both switchy and parts have different expectations and varying degrees of caring about abiding by a schedule or a chore chart, well, the consistency ends up being the inconsistency, which leads to the 5-hour sporadic cleaning spree, powered by a bit of hearty yelling.
Dude, shh, on the yelling part, wifey. We don't yell. We firmly remind the children of their responsibilities in a voice that they can hear.
In her defense, the kids wear headphones or earbuds most of the time. And well, yeah. So what has helped the situation? Because since I met you, the voice that they can hear has decreased a lot.
Changing the Wi-Fi password. But this is where we can do some system mapping with Victoria and the other adults. I mean, really, Leanna would be the best one of us to make sure there is more consistency going on in this household. It's about taking time to understand everyone's role and how they can work together. Sometimes the unique challenge is getting ourselves to help each other.
Yes, instead of everyone having their own separate goals or agendas. I personally am fond of schedules and charts because it helps everyone know what has been decided on and when, and even if things do get off track one day, because inevitably they will, well, tomorrow's a new day and the schedule can be upheld the next day. I think it's safe to say that consistency is sometimes a challenge of being a multiple or being in a relationship where two multiples are trying to run one family show. It honestly does take a lot of communication and family meetings and talking and planning so that everyone is on the same page. I know that is how we handle our finances. We actually sit down and look at everything together and know when all the bills are due and what money from where is going to pay for what. It all has to do with planning and communication, in my opinion.
And recognizing which of ourselves is out and having these conversations. For us, it is best to have Leanna out during budgeting and financial conversations. She's really good at managing all that comes with dealing with the finances. Maisie, on the other hand, has a lot of financial trauma from her past, and if she's out, she will start panicking about money. One thing we've learned about Maisie is that it doesn't matter how much money is in the account, she's going to be afraid of all worst case scenarios and will catastrophize. So again, learning to recognize who is out in our partner is pretty key to managing finances as well.
Right. For instance, if I recognize Maisie is out, I can offer comfort to her and we can resume the financial conversation when Leanna is back and present. Another challenge we mentioned in Season 1, Episode 7, Everyday Challenges with Dissociative Identity Disorder, was doing errands like grocery shopping and meal planning. This was sincerely a big challenge for us at the beginning of our relationship. And most of it was because we really didn't know how to communicate with each other yet about this topic. We didn't know what the other needed to know or talk about too. So I realized early on in our relationship that Garden System became dissociated a lot while grocery shopping. It was obvious to me that a lot of switching was occurring, and it seemed like she wasn't really present for most of the shopping trips. So I kind of took over and meal planned while putting stuff in our cart, stuff I thought the kids at home would eat, and that would be easy and quick enough for all of us to handle. I had no clue what was going on internally for Garden System. I didn't feel like I could talk with her about my internal planning of our meals in the store because she was obviously very dissociated. It wasn't until we sat down at home when Garden System was completely present and talked about meal planning and grocery shopping that we came up with solutions to these challenges. We learned that if we both sat down before going to the store, discussed meals we both wanted to have, and put those items down on a list, then we were both literally on the same page. At any given time, if we need to budget how much we have to spend at the store, we also come up with that number amount. And I will literally add up each item on my phone's calculator and then put the item in the cart. It's a bit tedious, but it keeps us all on track in multiple ways.
I think having an episode on how to manage finances as a multiple would be a great topic. Maybe even a great workshop idea too. We would love to share more about how we figured out some of those more minutiae details. Recognizing when the other is dissociated and then knowing what to do when the other is dissociated is a challenge. I wasn't able to get grounded while at the store. We had to come home. We learned to make appropriate plans before going to the store, which made the entire trip less distressing. I do think one really important point here, especially for supporters, whether you also have DID or not, is to resist that urge to take over and start caretaking your loved one when they are switchy or dissociated. You might have the impression that they are not capable of managing themselves or the situation, and that's sometimes just not true. It wasn't that I couldn't handle grocery shopping or meal planning. It was just we needed to find a different way of doing it now that we were married. Sometimes we try to help too much as supporters, or we forget that littles don't necessarily need as much supervision as actual children, and that extends far beyond this story of grocery shopping.
Right. We know that littles have been in the body for years, a lot longer than external physical children's years. Littles have gathered lots of skills in those years, even though they may talk like or sometimes act very young. I don't remember who exactly came up with it first, but DID, standing for doing it differently, I believe is very accurate. We figured out that we needed to plan before going to the grocery store since Garden System tends to become more dissociated while in stores. It took us a minute to figure that out, but once we did, it was a pretty easy fix.
Doing it differently. Yep. No matter what situation we encounter, we know it is figure-outable. It might be quite different from what other people do, even other DID systems, and that's okay. We are all unique. Finding ways to regulate ourselves and to help co-regulate each other has also been extremely helpful. One thing that has also helped us stay calm and more present while grocery shopping was when Drew offered a gentle touch on our back or shoulders while walking down the aisle. Having that physical touch and interaction was very grounding, so we could be in our body even though there was an urge to sort of just flee.
I think this is a great example of co-regulation in our relationship. Ways we help each other regulate when we can tell the other is in an unregulated state. And what's cool is that when we think about it, we really do help each other a lot in this way, because we can see the external signs of dysregulation and gently notify the other of what we are seeing in a verbal or nonverbal way to help the other become more regulated and grounded. I could think of a lot of examples we could share in our episode on intimacy where Garden System helps me get grounded or regulated in intimate moments that tend to trigger me. But another time I become unregulated or dissociated is when we do guest interviews or do recordings of any kind because of my nervousness. My anxiety over public speaking has become better with repeat exposure, but I still sometimes get in a panic state or show physical signs of anxiety, like trembling or getting short of breath or on the verge of a panic attack, feeling lightheaded, etc. Wifey, of course, notices and verbally acknowledges what she is seeing. Sometimes she will speak first so I can have a few seconds to compose myself or catch my breath. After recording quite a few guest interviews, we discovered that when I do have something to respond to or say during interview, I could put an object, like a pencil, on the table in front of us so Garden System knows I have something to say. It's like a nonverbal cue that I'm ready to talk. She also puts up with my need to practice things before we record, and she does this lovingly because she knows it helps regulate me.
Learning to be patient and compassionate is important. Those things don't always come quite naturally, especially when you have a system full of protective parts inside. It's a learning curve for not just one of us, but often all of us. Knowing each of our strengths helps to pull out the best in the other. It's finding the most mature adult self in all of ourselves to show up for wifey in the ways that she needs and vice versa. It's a lot of trial and error, having discussions when you do feel regulated, and practicing to keep yourself regulated. The more regulated you can feel inside of yourself, the more regulated the other person can become.
Yes, staying regulated always feels a little bit like a balancing act, but it gets easier with practice, and it's nice to be in a relationship that can be mindful of regulation and the other's state at any given moment. So, in summary, in this episode, we talked about two multiples being in a relationship with one another. We gave personal examples of benefits and unique challenges that have come up in our relationship together. We talked about communication and system mapping, and Garden System shared information about our upcoming system mapping workshop we will be offering. If you would like more information about signing up for the workshop, please send an email to admin@acouplemultiples.com. At the end of this episode, we talked about the unique challenges that have come up for us as a couple of multiples when handling daily responsibilities, such as chores around the house, managing finances, and errands like grocery shopping and meal planning. We talk about how we help each other regulate when we notice the other is dissociated or is in a dysregulated state. It is pretty awesome being in a relationship with another multiple.
It really is awesome having a wifey that also has DID. Even with all the unique challenges, we wouldn't have it any other way. In some future episodes, we will interview another couple where both partners have DID and a couple where only one partner has DID. You don't have to find another person with DID to have a loving, fulfilling relationship. There are many, many ways to develop relationships with others, regardless of whether they share the same diagnosis as you.
True story. What we are really trying to get across here is that there is all the hope in the world for multiples to be in successful, loving relationships of all kinds. Until next time, thank you for hanging out with A couple of multiples. We are honored to have multiple sponsors for Season 3. You can find links to each sponsor's webpage in the show notes of every episode and on our website under the Listen to Our Podcast tab. The Institute for Creative Mindfulness, one of the largest EMDR therapy training programs in North America, is directed by Dr. Jamie Plus Marich, the only EMDR therapy trainer who is out as a plural and offers the full EMDR therapy basic training in a way that honors lived experience and destigmatizes dissociation in clinical work.
We felt so validated when we were able to authentically participate in this training as Garden System. Go to www.instituteforcreativemindfulness.com for a full list of upcoming trainings, both online and in person, offered by Dr. Jamie and her selected network of EMDR trainers. Dr. Wendy Aporta with Bearings Therapy is a marriage and family therapist specializing in military and first responder individuals, families, and couples. She is proficient with clients experiencing PTSD, CPTSD, and dissociative disorders.
For her, helping those with traumatic experiences is not just a job, it is a vocation. She is experienced in multiple modalities and utilizes whatever is best for her clients' needs. She stays abreast of the latest research and treatments to provide the best possible outcomes for her clients. Call Bearings Therapy today, 214-892-2158. From your hosts, Drew
and Garden System.
Thank you for listening to A Couple of Multiples, the reality of dissociative identity disorder. This podcast is intended for educational purposes and is not a replacement for therapy.
Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapeutic relationship with the hosts or any guest speakers.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. We would love to hear what you enjoyed the most.
You can visit our website at acoupleofmultiples.com for additional information, including how to join our new online paid community called Hearts Multiplied, to book a consultation session, to access additional resources, and to also subscribe to our mailing list to receive future updates.
Remember, every system is unique, and your experiences may be different from ours, and that's okay. You matter and are loved for being all of yous.